he offers Jamie Bannerman, who plays Jamie, same names. That's what I was wondering. Dave Bishop, Dave Courtney, Jamie Bannerman, whatever. Um, he gives him a job as a driver, um, and believe it or not, he falls with Dave Bishop. Sorry, his wife played by, I don't know who she's played by, but her name is Emily, and that's all we need to know about her. She's not, you know, and he kind of gets wrapped up with her as he's working for Dave. He's also kind of seeing her, and she's complaining about she has no love life with Dave anymore, and he has to work as like the basically the driver, and he has to sort of help out with the drug deals that Dave's brother is involved in. The thing about the plot is it's not very well. It's not particularly well explained how it all kind of fits together. Um, in this 2 minute sort of period, his brother, Dave Bishop's brother, basically goes on this kind of rant. Well, not rant, but kind of lectures Jamie on how the drugs are delivered. I know the drugs are dumped at this warehouse. They pick the drugs up and they give it to the dealers. Um, so basically, the dealers don't know the suppliers, and the suppliers don't know the dealers. They act as the middlemen, and then the dealers then give it to the club. Um, there's a club that Dave kind of controls, and he's always there with his kind of entourage. And funnily enough, the barman um, acts as like the dealer. He's basically struck a deal with Dave, probably the most corrupt deal ever. That he will deal drugs for Dave basically, and it gets really. I mean, the first scene. There's a scene. I don't mean to spoil, but I doubt you'll see this movie because you probably wouldn't want to. It's so bad. He finds there's this guy called, I don't know, like Ahmed or someone, like this Afghanistan guy, um, and I can't remember how it goes 100%. Dave beats him to death because Ahmed, what's his name like that? Ahmed forgot. I think it was drugs. He forgot something, and then he stole. He apparently stole something from Dave. I mean, it's explained later on in the movie that it wasn't actually him, it was his brother who kind of intervened. Ahmed was working as one of the dealers for Dave. Then his brother kind of intervened with two other men armed with shotguns. Um, and basically, Ahmed had a choice to sort of. He was working for Dave, but he had a choice to either go against his brother, stick with Dave, and keep the drugs, or give the drugs up and sort of masquerade for a little while. But then Dave finds out, because I think, I don't know, like, he finds out that his drugs have gone missing somehow, and that there are no drug deals. He realises that it's an inside job. Um, the plot, in a way, is good to a certain degree. It links up well. It's fairly clever when you finally work it out. At first, you'll be like, this is overly complicated. They're trying to be clever. Um, um, I can't really describe it, but he's trying really too hard with the plot. Um, but I don't know. Like, I would say the plot is good to a certain level. I mean, there are some negatives. It's very cliched. Um, the, it's very cliched. It's a bit. There's no real sort of period where we can sort of look at minor sort of subplots. The subplots are very very compressed, very sort of just thrown out the way for the main plot. It's a very linear plot. It's not particularly technically great, but I think it's not overly bad. We're not talking Room. We're not talking The Room or movies like that. The Room was a, the plot was just dreadful. Let's face it. But this movie isn't The Room. It isn't, and you know, in all fairness, the plot is probably the most positive part of this story. It links in well, and you are scared at certain times when you think it's all just going to go down the shitter for Jamie. He's caught up in this kind of web of lies and web of deceit, basically. um, but in a sense, um, in a sense, the whole kind of drug deal thing kind of boils off, and it kind of just boils away and just goes, and it really sort of boils down to, in the end, Dave thinks that Jamie is sleeping with his wife, and that's kind of where it boils down to. Um, yeah. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not going to tell you the ending. I'm not going to tell you um, what happens. There are other characters. There's two other characters. I think that one guy doesn't really do anything. He's just kind of one guy doesn't really do anything. He does this weird thing with his lip. He doesn't speak, but he does this weird thing with his lip. He kind of like I don't know how to do it. He's like that with his lip. Something really retarded, but uh, and the other guy serves some purpose. But I'm not going to tell you anymore because I'll be here forever. Um, the acting isn't great. The acting isn't great. You can tell it was made on a very low budget. Just the stage direction, the way the actors kind of sort of portray themselves. Um, I've seen other movies similar to this, sort of the British gangster movies that I think have gone on for too long. They kind of started off in the mid 90s with maybe Lock, Stock, and there are a few other ones. Lock, Stock was probably the best in this genre. It has to be one of the best. It's quite a varied genre. You have football ones, Football Factory, Green Street, Cass, Rise of the Foot Soldier. You have sort of firm ones such as, like I said, Lock, Stock, Snatch, uh, others. You have sort of the hip, kind of Essex Boys Retribution. That one with Danny Dyer where he goes off to Cyprus, wherever, I can't remember its name. Um, there are some which are good, others which are sort of mediocre, others which are bad, and some which are just downright terrible. Um, and Full English Breakfast may probably fit. I'm not saying, I'm not saying it's a terrible movie completely, but from the genre itself, it fits in definitely in the sort of lower class. The acting isn't great, the actors just aren't that good. They're very wooden. Um, they're quite sort of. They're too direct. There are many times where Jamie is often talking, and he just seems kind of his expression doesn't really change. He just kind of he talks very directly to the person of which he's speaking to. Even when sort of Dave wants to sort of joke around, he just kind of has this face like, yeah, this really kind of stern look on his face. Um, he's an okay actor. I wouldn't say he's amazing, but he's an okay actor. Um, I would say Dave is okay, but that's because he's just playing himself. He's playing himself. He probably has the easiest role because basically all he has to do is just play the sort of the East End gangster. He has room for flair because his role's very easy. It's been done to death 1,000 times, and people know how to act sort of the hardened gangster type guy who doesn't really take no for an answer, sort of jovial, kind of a hardened